Welcome to The Lumber Word, where industry veterans Matt Beamer, Greg Riley, Charles Dillatore, and Ashley Buckhold dissect the world of commodity lumber each week. We bring you up-to-date insights on supply, demand, and market trends, plus use our combined experience to tell you what it all means. Join us for informative and entertaining discussions that guarantee to make you wiser about all things lumber.
Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The Lumber Word, where we do it live on 75 streaming devices or whatever you call those things. I don't know what they are. LinkedIn, X, all the other ones. And shit, Matt, last week you were able to actually see people having comments on here, and I had to figure out where you were seeing them at. So Greg's over in Europe right now, enjoying it. So welcome, boys. Just before we start, I found something out really interesting today. That Russell Wilson is married to the baby mama of the rapper Future.
What? Where did you get this?
You guys know that?
Sierra, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but how did you learn this? Who you been hanging out with at the coffee shop? Ash?
Yeah, I was in the gym early this morning, and they're all 20-something trainers in there, and they were talking about it. And I'm like, that's cool. I think I'll mention that on the podcast today. Which I think is pretty important to talk about.
Oh, it is. It's definitely it's a needle mover. Hey, Matt, you might be the only person in the country wearing a jacket right now.
Well, I think the AC guys are like trying to figure out what the proper temperature is supposed to be inside the building here, but right now it's about 60.
Wow.
It's a meat freezer right now. It's cold.
Right on. So, boys, what couple things we want to talk about. We'll talk about the market. We'll talk about, as Charles, you said, Hampton's new venture into Southern Yellow Pine. We're going to see if Matt's going to fall in love with pine now, or where that alliance is at. And
I got one customer.
And talk about it.
I'm happy I can be number one. If you're not first, you're last, Matt.
And talk about a few things. Interesting market this week. I mean, if I had enough 14s and 16s and 104 and 5/8, I'm selling them at the same price I've been selling them at for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a little bit better, but that's the item. It seems 4-inch and spruce is still ticking up a little bit. Looking at the numbers, I'm getting a feeling some people are looking for some more spruce items over the next 2 to 3 months. And I know some of my inquiry, one of them this morning said, hey, my person would be happy to take this. You can quote it for today's price, and they're okay if you ship it at the end of July. Right. So like, okay. But I'm seeing things like that out there. Right. And people are asking me questions. When is the CVD and AD going to kick in? I think people are trying to time some certain stuff, and we've got a good premium on spruce versus all the other species like Southern Yellow Pine. So Matt, what's going on the U.S. West and in the Canadian market, on the Western Canadian market?
I think 2-4 is, it's solid. Whether it's hem fir, Doug fir, spruce, I think it's just trading. I wouldn't say it's going up, but it's certainly not going down. 2x6 has been softer still. 2x6 hem fir has gone way down from spruce. So we've been selling spruce, for good tally spruce 2x6, we've sold as high as 545 Chicago and maybe some gut ball randoms like 5.25 Chicago. But the hem fir we've been selling for like 490, 500 Chicago for randoms. And so there's definitely a gap that's developed between the hem fir and the spruce on the 2x6. Everything else just sort of seems to be taking care of itself. We don't really have buildups of 2x8, 2x10, 2x12. Our stud business has been good, nice and steady. We're not raising prices, but we're not dropping them either. So it's just pretty boring over here. The only SKU that we're really concerned about, I guess, making sure that we can move the volume is 2x6, and it's been working. So we're actually the last few days been selling a fair bit of it, which is a good sign. So I would say the market's really mixed right now. There's no real tempo or there's nothing really. It's flat as a pancake, put it that way.
So 2x6, Matt, you talking coastal hem fir? or
Yes.
what is that like selling into Chicago now?
$490 to $500 for Randers.
$490 to $500 Chicago, and okay, and so it's competing. It's right there with just probably a touch underneath 2x6 spruce.
I mean, we've been able to sell spruce for a little more than, fair bit more than $490 to $500. We've been able to sell $525 to $545 for our wood, and maybe it's because we have a little brand name recognition there with the Bad Bean sawmill, and we tend to put out good 18s and 20s on the end of the tallies, which are desirable. So it's kind of, you're not really comparing apples to apples. It's a little different, but the fact is that we have more 2x6 hem fur than anything else in the room. That's the one thing that we're paying the most attention to. So there you go.
How are you going to get rid of that problem? I guess. I mean, as a consumer, I don't know anything about the consumer.
We've
markets,
dropped prices.
right? So,
that's what's happened. So we dropped prices on 2x6 in the last week or so, and it's been working. And so that job's not done. Let's say we're halfway done, and then once we move off of that, then we'll get into some new production in July. It'll be probably heavier 2x4, I'm guessing. I mean, I really have been telling the mills out west that I deal with, just try to avoid 2x6 if at all possible. I just feel like 2x6 is, maybe it's the yellow pine factor. I don't know, but it just seems like the demand for 2x6 isn't what it was 4 months ago. And meanwhile, 2x4 demand has been nice and steady. So why not just make more 2x4, and that way you don't have to worry about it, right?
Is there a reason for efficiencies running through the mills why they have to make so much 2x6?
Yeah, it's out west we've got a knot size thing. It's the same thing that the yellow pine guys have to deal with. It's just the size of the log determines the size of the knot, the speed that the tree grows. If you're in Idaho or east of the Cascades and you get a slow growing tree that takes 75, 80 years to become a mature tree, and it's got little bird's eye knots in it, you don't get a lot of fall down. And so, you can produce whatever you want, whatever your log diameter makes most sense for you, But if you're out west where the trees grow to maturity in 35, 40 years, and some of the knots are like the size of your fist, you try to run 2x4 out of that log, you're going to get a whole bunch of utility and economy. You're better off to run 2x6, 2x8, 2x10, 2x12. And so, for sure, the log determines what the mill output's going to be in most cases.
Perfect, Matt. Hey, question, like some of the places that you sell in your big areas on trucks, what are you getting for like 16s? I sold 16s today into the Midwest at 700 on trucks, just regular number 2 and better, which is crazy.
I don't know. I'd have to call Brad and see what he's doing, but I haven't had any 16-foot 2 and better stuff to offer out to the world down in Texas, but I've been selling some number 3, like in that 525, 535 range delivered. It seems to be not a massive amount of business, but enough.
Yeah.
So that's what I know.
So you're like a big Texas market guy. What's the feel down there? What's the takeaway like? What do you like, since that's such a huge market for softwood lumber? What's your feeling on the Texas market?
It's not as robust as it was 2 months ago, but it's still steady. It's really similar to what I'm seeing everywhere in the West, where demand and supply are about equal, and it's pretty boring trading. There's opportunities every day to sell lumber, and whoever wants to be the sharpest knife in the drawer is going to get the business. And so just a good trading market, nothing spectacular, nothing that I'm excited about or disappointed about either.
Good deal. Charles, pine, man, what's going on? I mean, is 6-inch finally firmed up a little bit?
I mean, it has. Random Random does a really good job of trying to get the narrative right, and they do 90% of the time. 6-inch markets out west are selling at premiums right now. East side is kind of depending on the item. There's still some stuff that needs some problems that need to be solved And I think, Matt and I talked yesterday, considering the new Hampton venture, focusing on that order file versus the traditional approach, or the new current approach that some of the Southern Yellow Pine operators have is, push it out further than, a 4 or 5 day window. I mean, obviously nobody wants to create a platform at the bottom, right? Because then it's like a boat anchor. But at the same time, you're going to capture very little price appreciation if you have to move wood every day. And have to is the key there, right? I mean, you've seen 4-inch kind of collapse, and the large discounts that we've discussed through this market move are no longer there for obvious reasons, but the market reached the levels that those discounts were at, right? And I think that's one thing that we've learned, and I think we really need to take note as a region and a producer and a consumer and a buyer and a seller, is that whenever you see those big discounts, I mean, the market is obviously going to revert to that level. It is. And it's not how long it stays there. I don't know. I'm not, I don't have a crystal ball, but it's definitely going to hit there. So it's just, it's tricky trading because truck markets change a lot faster than what y'all trade. So it can and get hairy fast.
So Charles, just real quick question, since east side is what the CME contract is on pine, it's printing a 410 east side. Is that where it's actually trading at, or where you would buy at, even if you could piece random together through straight links?
Probably pretty close.
Pretty close.
I mean, yeah.
It's holding that 70 plus spread to those other regions. And I mean, maybe that's going to be more normalized now, right? Or
well, I think, we talked about that last week, didn't we? We talked about the spreads and the obvious point of, I think we made a bet actually. And Greg was like, who's taking notes? And we realized that we were on video and it records. If you look at where your spreads are between those items on the east side compared to where they were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I mean, you got a $25 spread on between 14s and 16s and a $50 spread on 12s and 14s, right? I think, the 16 foot's going to give back more. But I think your 10 and 12s, I mean, you've got a scenario where the central the bottom fell out of it. And, there's not too many people that buy straight loads of 10s.
Yeah.
I mean, it really isn't. So it's a unique scenario, but there's still a lot of wood from the central going into Georgia, but a lot of eastern wood's going up the 95 corridor. I mean, we've had a lot of inquiry over the past 10 days going up to Maryland and Pennsylvania. So that might be part of the reason why the east side is still sustaining some sort of viable spread that's larger than what we consider normal.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey, one thing I noticed, when I want to go back to the comment about the new Hampton mill. So one thing I've noticed, Euro 16s have been strong, as with everything, right? 14s are tough to find. Anything in 4-inch has been moving. There's plenty of 6-inch sitting around. Studs are getting tight on European spruce from what I can see down south. My inquiries all for 92 and 5/8 and 104 and 5/8. And our last vessel, we got 2 or 3 trucks of each and they were gone right away. One thing interesting I'm noticing with Euro, and I'm noticing it because it's becoming a pain in the ass, like I'm getting calls from the port how trucks are overweight. And that normally.
Are they putting more pine? Are they putting pine in it?
Bingo.
Has to.
It's exactly what it is. So like I'm hauling stuff up to North Carolina and other places, normally get 28,000 feet on, and they're like, I got to drop 2 units. I'm like, you're going to ship 23 or 24,000. That costs like $10 1,000 more, right? So my net back is a lot worse. And had 3 of them today, had 4 of them yesterday. So I mean, it creates a lot of issues. One, because you got to appreciate it creates an issue for a trucker, especially if he has to come back. But 2, then you got to take it off so it doesn't get invoiced incorrectly, and you're getting less return on something you sell, right? So it's better to know up front how heavy this stuff is, if that makes sense. Anyway, that was interesting. The other thing I noticed on spruce last week, 2x4, 116 and 5/8, which you could find all over in 2 and better and stud, are pretty much non-existent at the mills right now because the word is they're all trimming those back to 104 and 5/8. So we've had a lot more people looking at 10 footers and 116 and 5/8 trims just because it made sense for some of these mills to cut them. when you got 104 and 5/8 trading at 500 plus and 2x4 10s trading at 400 something, that just happens, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of one thing I've seen. And then Rich Kunkel has a comment here off of X. He said, novice here said the decrease in 2x6. What are they used for, and what does that imply for building? I think he's kind of just listening to what we were talking about 2x6. I mean, 2x6 is mainly, this is my input, could be wrong, is mainly used in new construction, and people can either frame a house with 2x4 or 2x6. Some people choose to frame it with 2x6 because it's cheaper for them. How can I put this? To get the R factor that they need. They could get it with 4-inch, the insulating factor, but they got to change up mechanicals and some. But I think a lot more people are figuring out, one, through panelization and the ability to get a good R factor with technology, with better types of, foam insulation, et cetera, that they're using potentially less 2x6 than they were. I mean, the price is telling me that there's less 2x6 being used right now for some reason. I think that's what it is. So what does that imply for building? I think people are just figuring out how to build more efficient houses with a smaller wall panel. Is that Matt? Charles?
I mean, I would just say, to answer Rich's question, 2x6 and 2x4 are primarily used to build walls for houses. And so, if you see more 2x6 being used, then that, would tell you that maybe Ashley alluded to it. Some building codes require it, but other building codes, you have an option to use either one, and you might get a better insulation factor for your, energy efficiency score by using a 2x6 wall instead of a 2x4 wall. Mainly, the way I look at the difference between 2x4 and 2x6 consumption is just building codes around the United States and weather. So the further south you go, the more likely you are to use 2x4. You don't really need a 2x6 wall in Arizona or Texas, where it's warm a lot. In Minnesota, you do. You want a 2x6 wall. You want to be able to stuff in as much insulation as possible, and also have maybe a stronger load bearing, just more of a tank of a house, right? So it can handle more snow load and stuff like that. So that's the sort of short answer of what I think your question is. And thanks for the question.
And the other thing, Matt and Charles, it also probably says that a lot of people that were traditionally using spruce 2x6, because I think a lot of southern pine 2x6 goes into treating, right, Charles? And so
one and better, yeah. Well, two prime and better.
I think a lot of that.
I think something to take into consideration too with this decrease in 6-inch, decrease was the overvalued item going through the tariff phase, right? As Ash, you described, we pulled a lot of business forward. So a lot of people bought a lot of 6-inch, and now we don't need so much.
No, good point. And his follow-up question was, do you see new home construction decreasing? Could be more regional based, do you allude to? I think my short answer is yes, probably. I think we're seeing that already in some areas of the country. I'll have to pull that up. I think permits were down a little bit last month, and I think we've probably seen a decrease in home construction over the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, starts are down and permits were up last month. Yeah. But I mean, starts are down because I don't think that the big national home builders want to build a bunch of spec homes and just carry them on their inventory book. So, you're going to see less spec building and more custom building. And when you have less spec building going on, you just have less demand in the cash market.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's a good answer. And like Charles, you said 2x4, 2x6, 2 and better in pine. What's its main use before you get to the higher grades?
Number 2 goes into truss. I mean, that's a big proponent, bunch of plate too.
Okay.
So, that goes back to your non-load bearing walls. That's a big piece of it for sure.
Did you know that Southern Yellow Pine futures launched on the CME this year? These cash-settled contracts use Fast Market's trusted Southern Yellow Pine price assessment as their benchmark. Built on the strength of the Random Lengths new daily Southern Yellow Pine price assessment, this contract helps you mitigate risk and seize new opportunities in the market. Whether you're planning your next move or trading physical products, this tool offers a streamlined solution to meet your needs. Fast Market's random lengths price assessments are derived from verified price inputs collected via online submission forms, authenticated physical documentation, and structured interactions with buyers and sellers across the supply chain. All data is evaluated within Fast Market's proprietary assessment platform in strict accordance with our published methodologies. Each assessment undergoes a rigorous 3-level human review and approval process prior to publication. Key benchmark commodities are subject to independent third-party audits to ensure alignment with Fast Market's methodologies and compliance with IOSCO principles for price reporting agencies. It's data you can trust, paired with innovation that works for you. Stay informed and stay ahead. Head to fastmarkets.com/lumbertalk to find out more.
One thing I didn't ask either is I know 3 or 4 years ago, all the ag building was up big. I haven't heard much about that. Has that backed off at all? Some of the ag construction?
Oh, tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too expensive. I mean, when you get into a commodity market such as that, where it's so heavy in the cost of feed, and that's what basically where a lot of these growers and these integrators make money.
Yeah.
Right. It makes it very difficult to get those things to pencil. Because
Yeah.
I mean, a 500-foot house, a chicken house is going to cost you, a 4-house setup is probably going to cost you $2.5 million.
Yeah.
There was a lot of
$2.5–3 million
COVID
by the
money
time you're
getting
done.
sprinkled around too, Charles, right? I mean,
That's exactly right.
that helped pay for a lot of that stuff.
Yep.
Well, and you got $12 eggs, you can pay for a lot of chicken houses.
Maybe I should just start
That's a different.
house
That's a layer house. That's a different house. It's got a little bit more.
Well, no, not if
infrastructure.
they cut a hole. Not if they cut a little 12 by 12 inch hole on the outside, and they can call them free range. Then,
Hey, do you have chickens in your neighborhood, Ashley?
no, we don't.
We don't have them either. Charles, do you have chickens?
I do not. The coyotes will kill them.
Come
My daughter
on.
wants them, but
You should
no,
get
I don't have
some.
any chickens.
I
I got a fresh load of cows in one of my pastures though. Got them in last night.
What kind of cows are they?
They're black.
Angus?
Yeah,
Are they
the
Angus?
good one, the good
They're
kind, the good kind.
You don't even know what
No,
breed they are.
I mean, they're. I mean,
Well, they're
yeah,
black and they're brown.
They're a mixture between Santa Gertrudis, Angus, and some Brahma. I mean, Brangus is a big breed down here, and I mean, when you go by sale barn calves, sometimes it's not real crystal clear.
Brahma's got the nice briskets on them.
Well, they're heat tolerant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything with a lot of ears, extremely heat tolerant.
Yeah. So let's talk about
Cattle.
Hampton's new Southern Yellow Pine
Oh,
mill.
here we go.
That's crazy, man. I read that.
Hold
I
on,
read
let me
that.
get ready
I read
for
that this
war.
week.
You
I'm like, damn. Like, there's got to be some love coming from Matt now on Southern Yellow Pine.
Maybe I'll be able to actually buy lumber from Hampton now. I think.
So what can we talk about it? We've seen a couple news articles.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the yellow pine business in the 90s before I ever came to work here. So Hampton had tried to do some yellow pine business back in the early 90s when the spotted owl became a thing, and it didn't work out. We at that time, John Hampton was still alive, and he was wanting to diversify away from the Northwest because of what was going on with the lawsuits and the tying up of federal timber. And, the whole world was changing here in the early 90s. But we ended up not doing a very good job and failed to try to resuscitate 3 older sawmills that we had bought in Alabama and Texas. And so this venture here, I think, is starting from scratch. We're going from having previously 30 some years ago try to resuscitate old sawmills to we're just building a brand new sawmill. So that's going to be something we know what that's like, right? We just rebuilt Babine, 10 years ago after the fire, and that's a brand new sawmill. And we just rebuilt our Willamina sawmill here, the Green Doug Fir sawmill in Oregon. And we're pretty good at building things. And I think we're a pretty good operator. Hampton, all of the West Coast mills that are still around, whether it's Hampton or Sierra or Interfor or, anyone that's producing lumber in Oregon, Washington, California, you have to be efficient. You have to understand efficiencies. The logs up here are so expensive that if you're not efficient, you're just going to go broke. So, bringing that knowledge to the South is going to, I think, be good for us and hopefully good for our customers too. It'll also diversify just what we're able to offer to the world. I mean, if you think about Hampton, we're a Western company. We have trading offices in the Midwest and the East. We do import, export. We kind of do everything except for yellow pine. And so now we're going to be touching a little bit of that business, and it'll be a whole nother, experience. We'll be hiring new people and bringing in new knowledge and histories, and it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
So Matt, real quick, where's it at again? Where's the location?
It's in South Carolina, not far from Charles. I think it's about 100 miles away.
And then
Allendale, I think.
When is the completion date?
27.
Yeah, beginning of 27 is what the startup is supposed to be.
And what's the size of the mill?
A 300 million board foot mill.
Good size mill.
Yeah.
Do we? Okay, never mind.
Go ahead.
That was a good size mill. No, I'm good. I'm good.
Is that going to be an off the air question?
It might be. I don't know. But no, I think. Look, the state of South Carolina's timber industry as a whole historically was a $10 billion industry as forest products are concerned, right? We had some guys come in and build some wood pellet plants in Viva. Everybody knows how that went. We've had some majors curtail production. As a state, I can say we will greatly benefit from it, right? With economies of scale and some of the things that are going on. So, I mean, quite frankly, I welcome it. I just want to be educated. That's all.
What's funny is your government and the local community welcomes it too. It's refreshing because in Oregon,
polar opposite, huh?
Well, I mean, if you look at, I've talked about this on this pod many, many times. You look at what's happened in Oregon, Washington, California, and now in the last 10 years or so, what's happening in British Columbia. Look, dude, I mean, we're not enemies, but they're not treating us like South Carolina's treating us either, right? I mean, South Carolina welcomed us, and the governor's excited about it.
We probably put your flag up on the flagpole when you came.
Look, it's nice to be welcomed, and I think, look, if you're a state that wants to do business with a good ethical company, Hampton is right up there at the very top of the list of good ethical companies, and so I'm a proud Hamptonite here. I've been here for 21 years, and there's a culture here that's just really spectacular and special, and it's unique. And so the fact that we can bring that into the South, I think, is going to be really, really exciting. I'm looking forward to it.
Charles, you're going to have to go get your South Carolina government to send some welcome mats to the money people in New York now and have them come down there since they're
why would we do that? That's totally different.
A registered socialist on their list.
Hey, look, man, we can welcome Hampton with open arms because they're industrialists and they're trying to create something. The last thing we need is a bunch of bureaucrats with checkbooks. Where y'all live is a prime example.
Are you referring to the election in New York, Ashley? Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's exactly what he's
just chipping around the
edges.
edges.
You think there's going to be an outflow of rich people from New York City? Is that what you're
I
getting
think there
at?
already has been. Now you're gonna see the door slam.
I don't really understand the whole New York City election thing.
I don't either. I have no idea.
I really don't get it. So they have ranked choice voting, and Eric Adams is still a candidate, but isn't he the mayor? I mean,
I think the whole thing
really
comes down to it's tough living in any big cities, and it's better like we all live out on the outskirts of these cities far enough where, well, we don't have to look at Matt. You moved out so you didn't have to deal with a lot of that stuff downtown, right? I think I don't go downtown in Chicago much because I don't want to deal with it.
I'll tell you a funny story.
I love Matt Beamer's funny stories.
Last week, some people from Canada came down and wanted to have dinner with me and a couple other guys from Hampton. So we decided to take them down and meet them at this steakhouse in downtown Portland. It's in one of the tallest buildings in Portland. That building 5 years ago was worth $100 million. It's currently for sale for $32 million. And I bet if you had $25 million cash, you could just write them a check and own it. So that's what happens to your tax base.
That's crazy.
people.
That's wild.
There's some real world information for you right there as to what the city of Portland has done to itself over the last 5 years. And
I know
I'm
what
not even going
steakhouse.
to talk about politics. I'm just telling you, the reality is $100 million building is now worth $25 million to $30 million. So
I know
there
what
you go.
steakhouse you're talking about, Matt. It's a good one, but I still think the one that you sent me to, that old school one, which I've eaten at 3 times now, is the best one to go to in town.
Yeah. Well, that is the best one in Portland, but the view's better at the other place. Yeah.
Yeah. But very good. So look I've had a lot of conversations about when is the new CVD and AD kicking in, and I've gotten a variety of replies. I think the AD is the final announcement is like the second week of July. Don't quote me on that, but
July
it's somewhere around
25th is the knockoff date for that one.
okay. When you say knockoff date, so it comes out and then it's implemented 2 weeks after it's actually. And
It's going to be in place on July 25th as of my understanding of it at this moment.
And then the CVD will come in a couple weeks after that.
I think August 13th is the date on, I'm not 100% accurate on either one of these things, but that's the layout that I see at the moment, just off the top of my head.
So basically at the end of August, probably at the end of August, we'll have the new amounts built in, correct?
My guess is they'll try to start passing those off before the July 25th, because if their order file is already into that nebulous gray area, let's say they're going to ship it July 20th. Yeah. That's when it crosses the border. And so I've had emails sent to me from some Western sawmills basically saying, look, if you buy something for that time period and it doesn't cross the border by the 25th, all those bills are for your account.
Yeah.
Now, if you're a trader and you're trying to speculate, you're not going to speculate in that environment. But if you're just a customer with a contract or something, I kind of wonder how this will all get passed on, but it eventually will get passed on to some degree. When the cost of doing business is artificially increased, some of that cost is going to get passed on, just like,
Would you say some of the cost some of that is built into the pricing already?
In the board, it has been, not necessarily in the cash price.
I mean, I
do have a question when it comes to that, right? Obviously, there's a lot of people that are going to prepare for this thing differently, and because we have so many different ranges of market participants, right?
Yeah.
But from a producer level, from what y'all are seeing, are you seeing producers shipping more wood to get down here pre-AD, CVD? Are reloads going to be overflowing? From a tangible touch, feel, see, hold scenario, what kind of volume's already here?
I don't know. I haven't called any reloads to ask, but the last time we had this threat coming into March or April, several mills did ship wood across the border into public reloads. And then after it fizzled out, I was offered that wood. Ashley was offered that wood. Our customers were offered that wood. And so, look, there's always going to be a little bit of front running. If the world's going to change, like if you knew we were going to have another pandemic, would you go out and buy some extra ammo and diapers and toilet paper? Probably. And, load up on water.
I already have.
You know what I mean? I'm just saying, if you know something, if you already know something's going to happen, you're going to prepare for it. Well, of course they're going to do that, right? I mean, they'll do it to the best of their ability. And will it have a big effect on the market? For a little bit, maybe a little bit, but in the long run, it's just a blip, right? It doesn't really change the big picture. The big picture is it's just becoming more expensive to do business up in Canada.
To add to what you just said there, I think what we saw the last go around too is VMIs got a little bit extra wood than normal. I mean, if you just think of the mindset, if you're a spruce mill and pick any province, Canada, and you have contracts to customers in the US, especially in the northern part about it, you're probably, and if you think things are going to go up 20 to 30%, why wouldn't you ship it in and then ship your contracts for 3 or 4 months out of reloads, right? If
I
you
mean,
can.
if you can, yeah.
If you
I mean,
can. You mean that's not always possible for a lot of different nuances, right?
I'm actually kind of curious. So, like, I don't think Canada's not the problem. Like, if we're talking about the lumber market,
Yeah.
Canada is not even getting a billion board feet across the line anymore, right? So that's you
Wow.
can't accuse Canada as a whole of dumping at this moment. That they're not on the scale that they might have, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. They just don't have as much production coming across the border to point at. So I'm throwing them off this conversation for a second. Now you look at where is production now? It's coming out of the South, and here, we just announced we're gonna open up
We're
something.
going to add to it.
Well, I guess my big picture question, whether it's a self-interested question or just a hypothetical question, what happens with Southern Yellow Pine production over the next 5 years? Charles, you're the expert. I mean, do you feel like
I'm not the
it's
expert.
gonna
I'm not the one building a
keep
new
going
sawmill.
up? Do you think the yellow pine production will just continue to grow, and that these species like spruce and hem fir and Doug fir will just become like boutique items, and we'll all end up trading yellow pine in 20 years? I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of curious.
You know what's interesting about pine? What I think will happen? It's going to be just like spruce back in the 90s, Matt, when everybody would just would put on more production, get it down to the cost of production or below and sell for 6 months, and the mills would close, reopen again. People in pine are going to do the same thing. You're going to be producing that extra stick that you don't need, and everybody's going to run right around the cost of production for pine, which you can go back years and pine mills were one of the biggest profitable sectors in the market, right?
Well, because stumpage prices were so cheap.
True.
Because you're going to
Yeah.
have as many consumers. So when you increase the consumer base, your stumpage price is going to go up because you have more competition.
Yeah.
And you have a totally different landowner education base now than what you had 30 years ago, right? I mean, you got big landowners and TMOs and all these guys that are educating and selling on sealed bid versus, hey, I got a buddy that's a timber buyer and he's been in the timber business for 30 years. He's going to sell my wood to Canfor down the road. And I know that, and he's done it forever, right? For my dad, his dad did it, right? That whole dynamic has changed. So, your raw material and your input costs have steadily risen. As far as a production, I think there's going to be some changes as far as consumers and those boutique items, as you described them, Matt. And pine is going to gain some of that market share, which may prop up pricing from a big picture standpoint. And I think that's probably what Hampton's seeing too, right? Because there's going to be markets that we just can't touch, right? California, Nevada, we can touch them, but we're not going to be the go-to species just for a lot of reasons because there's no value, right? Because if you look at truck markets and you look at how easy it is to manage that supply chain from a local level versus, okay, if we ship into Phoenix, we're no different than in a supply chain or a solution base outside of price than Doug fir is. But by the time you take it from a producing region to a Phoenix, where's the real value? You know what I mean? And if you're shipping trucks out west, you have a huge margin for error as far as time of delivery, execution, framers standing around with their hands in their pockets, etc. I think there's going to be an opportunity for us to move further north, not so far west as far as consumers go, but it's also going to depend on operators. Who is going to stick to their guns and stay where they're at versus expand and continue to grow, right? Because you've got a lot of mills and a lot of investment that's been made over the past 10 years to increase that stuff. And a lot of these 250, 300 million foot mills aren't running that capacity. Right?
Does yellow pine go into the Caribbean?
It does, but a lot of it's rough cut, full dimension.
Yeah. I years ago, green hem fir and green Doug fir used to go in the Caribbean back in the 80s and 90s. Oh yeah. Lots of it. Yeah. So they would get barged down there. Yep.
No,
when you were a baby.
It's exciting. It'll, Matt, I think to answer your question is yes, you're going to be trading it. I'm going to be trading more of it. And
y'all stick to what you're good at.
Trading lumber.
Yeah.
I don't care whether it's yellow, lumber, white,
no,
green.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It all boils down to having the right partnerships. It doesn't matter what species, what market you're in, what your commodity is, right? I mean, you got to have the right partnerships as far as liquidity and facilitators to make it work.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, so update on the truck that we had stolen out of our reload and the other truck that we had.
Did you find it?
I've called the Chicago Police Department. I went in physically, spent 3 hours in there filling out a police report a month ago. Found the pictures of the truck, can verify it was the same person that went in. Feel I have a pretty good idea of one of the people that knows the guy that was driving that truck. I finally got the Chicago police officer on the phone, and he called me back at 6:30 one night when I was at dinner with my wife, and I had to go out in the rain and explain to him everything. He had no idea what we even do as a company, right? How lumber even moves. And his after this 20-minute conversation, he goes, "Well, are you sure it didn't mistakenly go somewhere else?" I'm like, "You got to effing be kidding me." Like,
I mean, that's exactly what happened.
I've got
it went somewhere that it wasn't
mistakenly is the key word.
I got pictures. I can give you the recording of a person that told me he knows the guy and send that to you. Can I call you when I'm done with dinner? He goes, I will be here all night. Called him 10 times when I got home. Never has answered his phone. Won't call me back. I really honestly don't think they care. Or they're too overwhelmed with other stuff. But $15,000 loss. They're like, let your insurance cover it. And it's frustrating because I can walk. And then since then, I've heard of 5 other people that have had this happen across the United States, right? And what it leads me to think is we've always bragged about how we do business as a handshake. And so anybody that does trucking or anything, you got to make sure you're physically talking to the human being that's shipping your load, and don't just do it by email or anything. And that's good advice to anybody doing, even selling lumber, right? This is one of those things where we should have picked up the phone and talked to this company. But yeah, it's frustrating. It's like, you do all the detective work, which could be wrong, but it pretty much, I think it's 80% points to who took it, and nobody wants to do anything about it.
You might have to go pay the guy a personal visit, Ashley.
Yeah. Give him a deal he can't refuse. No, I don't want to.
I'm not going to say anymore, but I think you get the gist of what I'm getting at.
Man, let's get more incriminating on this podcast.
I'm too old for that, man. I don't need to walk into something like that.
Somebody just screenshotted this thing with my face on it and Ash saying that, and they're like, we know exactly what's going on here.
I mean, you don't have to do anything. You just show up.
Yeah.
Probably scare them just by showing up.
One great thing is the reload actually, and this is another thing, we have a reload that takes pictures of every single vehicle when they come in empty, of the driver and of the vehicle when it leaves with what it's loaded with, which has helped for a lot of things, right? I can verify if something did or didn't load on a truck. I can verify if a truck picked up, which is great. And a lot of our reloads don't do that. And I would really think that should be something that there's really going to be a push, I think, for every single person that reloads wood for people at any kind of level to have some kind of security and documentation of video or pictures going forward. Because I don't think this just happens every now and then. I think it happens more than we think it does.
It's just surprising all the freight that actually moves around this country. Somebody's worried about a $12,000 load of wood.
Yeah,
that's not real easy to get. Like, you can't fence a unit of 2x4
But no, you know why people do it? Do you know why I was told? Do you know why I was told but people do it?
Why?
From a buddy of mine this weekend. Because it's a low enough price where they know that nobody in law enforcement is going to really pursue it at all.
So what does your buddy do for a living that he knows?
So they take $15,000, maybe they sell it for $5,000, do it again. And I mean, this was end of April, this happened, and it doesn't seem like anything's going to be done about it.
Yeah. It's a violation, right? That's the problem with theft. You just feel violated.
I'm taking it really personally.
I can tell.
Yeah. I can't tell you what my buddy does either.
That's fun.
Need to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool, boys. Anything we should look forward to the rest of this week? I mean, I sense that everybody feels a buy is coming on the spruce side for people to pad themselves for third quarter. And I always get nervous when I feel the same thing that everybody else is feeling.
You
I
said
think-
something 3 weeks ago that stuck in my head, and I haven't been able to forget about it since you said it.
Yeah.
And you said when 80% of the industry is on one side of the coin, it usually goes the other way.
Generally.
And
That's 100% accurate.
since you said that, the board has sold off $25 and it's off again today. And the volume of business, like I said at my desk, it's not knocking me over, and it's not great either. It's just steady Eddie.
Yes.
We had Bart on last week, and he was talking about the same things that you just alluded to about the industry thinking it's going to go up, and look, I don't know the answer to the question. None of us can see the future, but there's things that you say that are wise, and that one stuck in my head. It seems as though your little scenario where everybody thinks something's going to happen, then it doesn't happen is coming to fruition slowly but surely. I hope not. I mean, I do want the market to go up, and I do believe in the long run prices will go up, but maybe it'll just take longer than what folks hope for.
Well, I bought some 2x4 16s today, so I'm pretty sure that was the top of the market.
I think you need to go out and buy 100 cars of 9s too while you're at it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm not touching
Now
this.
they're cutting 10s back to 9s. Yeah, do that.
It's interesting. I ran the average price of 2x4 9s Boston for 2024, and it was $451 a thousand. 3 years before that, it was $1,000 a thousand during COVID, the average price.
Wow.
Never look back, Ashley.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. It's crazy. All right, well, cool, guys. Anything? I want to ask anything that any one of you wants to put out there that you're looking to move at all. We might as well use this as an opportunity to tell anybody anything we're looking to sell.
I'm pretty clean at the moment, buddy.
I'm pretty fluid.
I've got 2x10, about 10 trucks of 2x10 Euro down in the Cape. Mostly 16s. I got a few 12s and a few 14s. I want to move those because I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with 2x10s down in the Cape in Florida. But they usually go up north into Kentucky or those areas. So I'm looking at moving that stuff and 2x6 16s in the Cape on Euro.
What do you want for 2x6 16s?
I think I'm asking $515, but I've taken well below that. I mean, my ask price is high when I send a list out, if that makes sense. But like, look, it's no different to customers, end use customers.
So you're like a used car salesman, bait and switch.
No, I'm like a new car salesman. I'm like a new car salesman. Have you been into a new car dealership lately?
No, I haven't. No,
It's a freaking nightmare. Like,
is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like a new car salesman, but I'm trying to sell something new. But
You're like a college tuition administrator.
That's
Our
yeah.
list price is $70,000 a year, but we'll get you in for 35. It's a hell of a deal.
yeah, where that doesn't matter about the actual cost. It's only the payment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, boys. It's been a lot
All right,
of
boys.
fun.
Y'all enjoy
Thanks a
it.
lot.
Have a good day.
Have a good
Thank
day.
you. All right.
All right.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Lumber Word. The Lumber Word podcast is dedicated to engaging conversations about the lumber industry, including trading ideas, market trends, and evaluations of overvalued and undervalued assets. We wish to emphasize that the discussions and opinions expressed in this podcast are purely for informational and entertainment purposes. They should not be considered as financial or investment advice. We encourage our listeners to make their own financial decisions, taking into account their unique circumstances and financial goals, and to seek professional financial advice if necessary.